This is the story of Thumbelina.
Once upon a time, a young woman wished to have a little girl. One day, her wish came true. She found a very beautiful girl, no taller than her thumb, between the petals of a flower. I shall call her Thumbelina. Will be a walnut shell, said she.
Little Thumbelina enjoyed playing in the garden, though she was barely as tall as the grass.
But one day, a big, ugly frog caught Thumbelina as she was playing in the garden. Crack! Crack!
I have a good son.
Crack!
You are very pretty.
Crack! Crack! Said he.
You shall be a good bride for my son.
Quack, quack. And off he went with Thumbelina to the swamp where father and son frog lived. Thumbelina cried.
The father frog was very angry that Thumbelina did not want to marry his son and placed her on a water lily in the middle of a nearby pond. Poor Thumbelina.
Stay there until you decide to marry my son. Quack. Small fish swimming in the pond felt sorry for little Thumbelina, who kept crying and just wouldn't stop. So they swam under the leaf and nibbled away the stem, so that she could float away from the terrible frogs.
Suddenly, a large beetle swooped down and carried Thumbelina to his hole in a tree. Poor Thumbelina was very, very frightened, but the beetle was good to her. He fed her on honey from flowers and made sure she had enough to eat and slept well in a safe place among the leaves of his tree. But the beetle was growing old, so he placed Thumbelina on a flower in a nearby field.
Free at last, little Thumbelina was very, very happy. It was summer and food there was in plenty. Honey from the flowers and dew to drink from the leaves. And the sunlight kept her warm. The tiny insects and small field animals were her playmates. But soon summer was over and winter spelled cold, cold days.
Thumbelina felt cold and hungry. The flowers lost their petals. Leaves blew down from trees, and she had nothing to keep her warm.
She wandered through the fields for a long, long time, until at last she met a friendly mouse. He was hurrying home to supper. He saw that she was cold and hungry and invited her down into his den.
The mouse and his friend, a mole who lived in a nearby tunnel, were very kind to Thumbelina. To repay them for their kindness, she kept house and cooked delicious meals for them.
One day, while Thumbelina was there alone, she looked outside the window and saw a poor swallow who seemed to be dead. But he fluttered his wings. She quickly brought him in before the fire, where he soon became warm. He had not really been dead, just numb from the cold. Little Thumbelina cared for the bird and fed him well. When he was strong and well, he thanked her and flew far away.
Meanwhile, the mole loved Thumbelina and wanted to marry her. Thumbelina did not want to marry the mole, for she did not want to live underground in his tunnel forever. She wanted to go back to her garden and wanted to live among the beautiful flowers.
Poor Thumbelina, she was so sad. She stood at the door of the mouse's den, looking up at the clear blue sky. Just then, she heard wings flapping, flap, flap. It was a friend, the swallow. He asked her why she was so unhappy. Thumbelina told him her wish, and he said, "Come away with me." She climbed onto his back, and away they flew to a far-off land where there were flowers everywhere.
The swallow placed Thumbelina on a beautiful white flower. It opened, and lo and behold, a handsome prince, not much taller than herself, with a gold crown on his head and delicate wings on his shoulders, smiled at her. When the prince saw Thumbelina's beauty, he asked her to marry him. He gave her a fine crown and a pair of white wings as wedding presents. She was so happy.
After they were married, Thumbelina and the prince lived among the flowers and were warmed by the sun. With their delicate wings, the prince and his beautiful bride could fly from flower to flower, sipping the honey. They enjoyed singing of the birds.
Their friend the swallow stayed to live near them in the garden.
Thumbelina was no longer lonely. She and the handsome prince loved this wonderful land and lived there happily forever and ever and ever. That was the story of Thumbelina.